this year of all years is so weird and odd that it managed to convince me to be intrigued about a Machine Gun Kelly album. Who would have known? When would there ever be a time that I'd care about Machine Gun Kelly? But of course, it would have to be in the year 2020. Not that everything just resets as soon as 2021 comes around. I'm not all about that new year, new me life, because that's a load of bollocks, as we should all know by now. But it had to be this year that I would suddenly be like, maybe I should listen to this Machine Gun Kelly album. Because for whatever reason, I just had this strange thought that somehow he would pull off pop punk, because he clearly could never do the rap stuff, and he did a few like pop songs with some collaborations a few years ago that I thought were pretty terrible. So I was like, there's got to be a lane for this guy. And usually when rappers suddenly decide that they want to completely shift genres, it's been proven to go completely wrong. Vic Mensa doing it only just last year. There was just something about the idea of Machine Gun Kelly doing this that seemed to just appeal to me for whatever reason, and I'm kind of glad I listened to it, because it's definitely an entertaining listen, but I'm not going to say he fully pulled off the genre. I mean, he pulled it off in the sense that he nailed all the cliches and all the tropes that you often find in the most generic albums in pop punk. But, you know, that's as far as it goes. Like, he nailed that, but it's not a good album, really. Reading through the lyrics was definitely fun, though. I mean, Machine Gun Kelly acting like an angsty teenager from start to finish on this album got a few chuckles out of me. I kind of feel like I've laid out all my cards on the table at the beginning of this review by saying that so much of this is just incredibly cliche from start to finish. Because that's essentially what this album is. Like, he really just listened to a few pop punk albums and thought, I'll just copy those kinds of lyrics. Or he didn't, and he just ended up sounding like every cheesy pop punk band we've heard since the early 2000s, and so many of them being as terrible as they are with the way that they write their lyrics, because that's just how this album ends up being. Lots of references to alcoholism and drugs, which is fine, but just the way he kind of makes the lyrics so corny, like kiss kiss the bottle all night, come on. Or the really poorly written lyrics about girls and relationships throughout this entire album. Drunk face, man, I'm overcompensating for heartbreak, I swallowed a pill that was in a heart shape. And then the next line references heart as well. It's just really, come on. But the funny thing is about this track in particular, and a few other songs too, is that he actually sounds quite competent over this type of instrumental. Like, the tune is there, he is actually sounding pretty good on this track too. Like, just thinking back to when he tried to be like this edgy rapper and looking at how he actually sounds decent over these kinds of instrumentals, it's a bit weird. Bloody Valentine genuinely has a good hook. Like, that chorus is so anthemic and just brings me back to when I was like 15, 16, and everything I listened to was just in this type of genre of music. It's funny because if I wasn't wincing at every line or every other line on nearly every track, I think this would be a solid album. Like, it genuinely would be, which is weird as hell, because he sounds alright. I mean, he sounds decent on these tracks. He's just dropping the most cringe-worthy lyrics at every opportunity. The track Forget Me Too, where he's just honestly wallowing in his own sadness over this girl, and that line where he says, the other reason I punched a wall back at home. It's just like really really bad to listen to. Halsey comes in with like the female perspective of the song, which I thought was actually a solid touch, because obviously he's moaning throughout the entire verses and the chorus. Like, his entire shtick on the song is just moaning, and then it's kind of good to see that the girl, like the girl of the relationship, gets to come through and show her side of the story, which I thought was pretty good. But it's just like Halsey sounds actually really out of place on this track, and the lyrics themselves are just so poorly written. Like, honestly, man, it really sounds like teenagers wrote this. I couldn't even tell you how old Machine Gun Kelly is, but like, I'm sure he's old enough by now to not be writing these kinds of lyrics. World War III is like the most angsty teenage song you could ever imagine. Seriously, a 15-year-old had to have wrote this song. He must have ghostwriters. He must have kids being his ghostwriters on this album, because there's no way he wrote these lyrics and thought, yeah, we're gonna go with that. And then Lonely as well, like, come on, bro, you've got to just channel your emotions a bit better than this, because the way he's writing these words is just too much. It's just too much. I like the cheek of this guy as well. The cheek of him to say later on in the album on one of the tracks, I swear to God I never fall in love. Are you sure? You sure? So many of these tracks are about like how women have done you wrong. You can't actually be trying to tell us that you never fall in love and this is just a one-off occurrence where like he's just so infatuated with this girl. Like you fell in love on every song here, you did. Regardless of all that though, I'm just somehow impressed at the end of this album to have not really minded how this sounded. Like, I think a lot of people are saying they hate this, but I don't think there's a huge amount to hate. I think it's just a lot of missed potential in the writing, and maybe it's a fool's game to expect good writing from Machine Gun Kelly, because I mean that is a bit of a fool's game actually. But I just think when you look at the pop punk genre as a whole, because a lot of critics kind of dismiss pop punk, which I think is a huge shame, because when you do look at it as a whole, there's a lot to offer in the world of pop punk. Bands like the Wonder Years are really good. Obviously Jeff Rosenstock, he gets a pass generally from critics, I think. You've got bands like Spanish Love Songs, great band. Like, they're just such talented writers and can show their emotions in a really interesting way. Even the Smith Street Band, who aren't exactly pop punk, but they are in that realm, I think, of kind of like punk angstiness. There's other examples too. I just feel like a lot of other bands out there seem to just offer their lyrics in a better way, a more detailed manner, and Machine Gun Kelly is not here to do that. So yeah, it's a 4 out of 10, but I still feel like I was quite surprised at how decent some of these tracks actually ended up being in terms of how they sounded. It's still bad though, like it's still a bad album overall. I can't excuse these lyrics, man, can't excuse these lyrics, but hopefully you liked this review. Hopefully you got a good perspective from me, and hopefully you subscribe and stick around for the future. Hopefully. Do have a good day. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts on this album in the comments, and goodbye.